Hey y'all, Data Guy here. And today I have a video for you where I just wanted to take a quick look and show you how to get started with Tabular, which is a managed service built around Apache Iceberg, which is itself a high performance table format for large scale data analytics. So Tabular aims to be a comprehensive solution for handling big data with ease, efficiency, and reliability. It's aimed to simplify data lake management, giving you kind of an abstraction layer over your complex data lake environments, allowing you to just manage it all from a single pane of glass, give you the performance and scalability that you need to through Apache Iceberg that you need to enhance that query performance, get really scalable sub-second queries at the trillions of record scale. Also, being able to handle schema evolution, compatibility with new forms of data, having the ability to do things like time travel and snapshot isolation. And then also, big benefit is the ability to be compatible with many different query engines. So whether it's Apache Spark, whether it's Trino, which is formerly known as Presto SQL, or Apache Flink, you can choose which engine you actually want to use to actually handle the compute for your queries, and still use Tabular to leverage as kind of the abstraction layer above those data engines. So that's just kind of a quick high level glance at what Tabular is, what Tabular does, some of the high level features. So what we're going to do here today is actually get started using it. And then also what you can kind of see here is that you have your many different kind of ways of interacting with your data, your Spark, your Trino, your Python, Snowflake. Then you have Tabular, which takes those queries, optimizes them, passes them into Apache Iceberg, which then is able to access, is able to act as your data lake, which is then, backed up by just blob storage like an Amazon S3 or Google Cloud Storage. So to get started, what you'll need to do is just go to the tabular.io website and hit try it out. So once you sign up with an account, what you'll do is you'll be presented by this getting started guide. So I can hit get started here with the org of my choice. And then you'll see you are opened up with a table that can overview all of your different warehouses. So here I have my sandbox warehouse, which we'll get to in a second. But I also just wanted to show you, how you can configure and set up your storage and compute. So here under connections, you can connect to your storage, your compute through Spark, Trino, Starburst, Databricks, whatever you want to use as your compute engine. And then you also have the option to set a catalog sync here as well with Amazon Glue, Redshift, or Snowflake. And you also can layer in your own security credentials, IAM providers, IAM role mapping. So you don't need to actually set up the roles and manually assign users. You can have them automatically federated from an external source. But let's actually interact with some data. Let's see what we can do with Tabular here. So here in the warehouse screen, each warehouse is associated with a single S3 bucket, which is the storage location for all of its tables. So this existing sandbox warehouse is backed up into, and actually if I mouse over it, let me go back out, you can see, if I go over here, it says it's a type of S3. And so this means that it's hosted on the back end within an S3 bucket. Then within here, I can click into my particular data warehouse. I can look at default, which has nothing in it. But I can also look at examples, which has more interesting files, where I have Backblaze, drive stats. So these are just the different statistics of different types of drivers. You can see just super interesting data here. JK, this is pretty boring data. NYC Taxi L, the classic NYC taxi trip records database. So you can see here just public data, and you'll see I have all the different vendor attribute information, what the pickup code are, description of these, and as well as the amounts. And then if I go into activity here, you can see what the snapshots are, what the table activity over time was. You can watch data as it's been added into your table. So see here, it started out at 7.7 million records, and then it's constantly been updated, which I'm actually shocked by, to get up to this total of 110 records. And you can see that kind of correspond with the decreasing amounts of data being added over time here. So you see it kind of plateaus, and then it goes back up as people start adding more data. And you can also see the snapshot ID, total records at that particular point in time. And then you also have the ability to roll back to that snapshot. So if you want to revert your data back to a previous date, Tabular will actually take a snapshot of the attributes in the data at that particular point in time. And then what you can do is roll back to that previous point in time and roll back that data. If there's been a degradation since you last, updated your data, or you want to roll back to that certain point in time so you can do analytics as if you were in that point in time. So outside of just like some characteristics of the table, the activity, the snapshots, you also have the option to set access control here. So here you can say, hey, this person has access to select or pull information, but I don't want them to be able to drop or update the table, right? And you can just apply the changes here, grant role access to anyone that you want to, that has that given role. And then under settings here for a given table, you can set a description, set the maximum time that you want to be able to retain snapshots for, minimum number of snapshots you want to retain, automatically compacting, and then things like storage optimization, object storage layout. And you can also actually configure data lifecycle policies. So you can say, hey, if data goes past a certain threshold, purge that data, save it, or just free up more room for actual, more relevant recent data. And so this is basically just, a nice management layer on top of Apache Iceberg. So, if I go back up to the examples, just seeing the data usage, seeing the high-level characteristics. And then if I want to actually go create a new data warehouse or a new organization, what you will need to do is just go to hit this plus button, create a new name for this data warehouse. So new warehouse, and then select a storage bucket. And this is where you can set up an Amazon S3 bucket. So you can either use their connection assistant, where you can say, hey, my bucket is in North Virginia. I want the access to this bucket to be given to everyone. And then it will prompt me to launch for AWS to go get my role ARN for a given S3 bucket. So you'll go into your AWS console, go to that resource options and just kind of settings page, pull the role ARN, and then what you'll do is type it in here. So ARN AWS IAM -- then your account ID /role, or not /role, /role _name, as well as your external ID. And this is just an ID that's going to recognize, hey, this is coming from Tabular. And then go and add that role to your given warehouse. And so that's how you get started creating a new warehouse within Tabular. You can also within here look at any drop tables, any tables that were deleted from your warehouse. You kind of have like a virtual trash can for your database. And then here under connections as well, you can also configure what compute you want to use. So I know I showed this earlier. I want to just quickly show how to set up, let's say, to a Snowflake data warehouse. So here, if you want to actually use something like Snowflake as the compute engine for your data, even if all your data is being stored in a data lake in S3, you can say, hey, I want to use Snowflake to actually run and process all my queries, but I don't want it to actually store the data. And so you can add it here under the connections tab. And so this is where, any kind of compute, this could be Snowflake, BigQuery, any kind of compute engine that you want to use, you can configure here and then just go through its respective setup screen. So you'll notice each of these has a different method of getting set up because obviously each compute engine is going to have a different way of actually running your compute. So like for the Spark one, you'll actually need to install the Iceberg drivers, Tabular drivers, add some credentials here, define your Snowflake warehouse, your Databricks warehouse, and that requires a lot more setup than just running it within Snowflake, because with Snowflake, you don't actually need to install the underlying drivers. You can just have it run directly using that raw Snowflake compute. And you can see here, it'll give you example queries and things like that for querying your data. So you can still do that actual data querying in the language of whatever service you're using for your compute. Additionally, if I want to add any service accounts here, like an IAM provider, all you would do is bring in your IAM role ARN. So just like you did for your S3 storage, whatever resource you want to authenticate with Tabular, just bring in your AWS ARN and you'll be able to link that here. Finally, just to show you around some of the housekeeping items here. So here in an organization, you have the ability to invite or manage whatever users. So you can send an email out to whatever email you would want to invite your team member from. And then here you can also define your different roles. So if I want to create a new role, data guy, that's a new role, hit create role. And then what you can do here is add your individual people to this particular role. And then here under this kind of menu, you can see what parent roles, so what roles you want to inherit their permissions from, service accounts, what do they have authorization to actually manage and conduct, as well as just kind of general settings for what the role name is. And you can also delete this role here as well. So finally, also just I keep saying finally, but just under usage stats here, you can go to look at all your usage information by gigabyte, billing information, figure out how much you're spending with Tabular. And that is really all I had to show you today. I just want, this came up on a list of all of the hot new data tools that are out there. So I wanted to quick give it a check out, give you a walkthrough of how to use it, how it works. So you just having a quick understanding of what it is at a glance. And if you want to get started, you know where all the basics are. So let me know if this is a cool tool, if you'd like to see me do more work with Tabular, or if this is completely off the mark and you don't care about Tabular and you hate it. But no matter what, have a good rest of your day. Data Guy out.